Trade reports are escalating as an insider has revealed a blockbuster trade between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Pittsburgh Penguins is incoming. And this trade is perfect for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to break down why in this episode of Penguins Digest as trade rumors and reports continue to escalate league-wide. We're going to break it all down in this episode, but before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins heading into this new season that's starting in just over a month's time, go down below, hit that free subscribe button, because this is the place to be for all your daily Pittsburgh Penguins news. But let's get right into it. We know that the Pittsburgh Penguins league-wide are pretty much the only sellers, and Elliotte Friedman has linked one player from the Toronto Maple Leafs to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I do believe that this trade is a lot bigger than even Elliotte Friedman is alluding to, because there is a lot of connections, obviously, with Kyle Dubas. But let's jump right into it. It started yesterday with a quote from Elliotte Friedman that basically said, Nick Robertson, he could actually be available. Yes, he was just signed. The Leafs and Nick Robertson settled outside of arbitration on a $1.8 million contract and some change, of course, but $1.8 million roughly. And Kyle Dubas knows this player, right? Kyle Dubas obviously loves this player, drafted this player, all of these things, and thinks that he could probably have a spot on the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I don't think that he's wrong, and I don't think that would be such a bad move, but I do believe that the Penguins have a player in a position of need for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we're going to get to that in a second, but you can see here from Nick Barden, he reported based off the quote from Elliotte Friedman, but that, Friedman went on to say, I have a couple people ask me about the possibility of Nick Robertson in Pittsburgh just because obviously Kyle Dubas knows him. Obviously, they got out of arbitration. They settled on Saturday, $1.825 million. The Maple Leafs have to clear some bodies and some cap space. Keep that in mind with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they've got a lot of them. He went on to say that there was a couple other things with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he thinks that there is going to be a move. Now, Nick Robertson, again, lots of chatter about him to the Pittsburgh Penguins and that link to Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins. When you take a look at his stats the last couple of years and last year, for his minutes, the amount of minutes that he plays, which is on average 12 or most of the time less than that, especially in the playoffs, his point production is not bad for the amount of games played that he has and the fact that he is still young, in this league. Of course, only 23 years old. He's going to be 24 this coming season, but has barely gotten a sniff at the NHL level. This was the most amount of games he's ever played last season, and you can argue that his deployment in Toronto was, not that great still. So again, averaging only 12 minutes, he scored 15 goals, averaging 12 minutes of ice time. He had 22 points. This guy is a sharpshooter. He is a sniper. He will come in. He will score goals for this Pittsburgh Penguins team. I think this actually makes a lot of sense for the Penguins if they want to continue to get younger, to get faster, and add some more goal scoring. I mean, Rutger McGroarty is a great player, but he doesn't have as much NHL experience as a Nick Robertson. If you were to put Nick Robertson on Sidney Crosby's wing, Nick Robertson could legitimately, and honestly, this is my honest opinion, score 30 goals in this league. I do truly believe that if you were to put him on Sidney Crosby's wing with the shot that Nick Robertson has, makes all the sense in the world for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And again, Nick Robertson, 2 seasons ago, not just last season, had better point production than just a season ago. So 56 games played in 24, excuse me, and he had 27 points in those 56 games. He had 14 goals, so similar output to last year, but he had more assists with 13 assists. Of course, he was spending some time on the second and the first line, and he just wasn't given an opportunity in Toronto. I do believe they're going to probably move off of him still. I think that is the plan, or they're moving off of somebody, that's for sure. So I think if you're the Penguins, at least poke around on this player. Now, he was on a 20 goal pace over 82 games the last 2 seasons. That's great production, 20 goals, if you want to add that to your lineup for a young player, a sniper. And not only that, 20 goal production playing in the role that he was playing in. Yes, he spent a little bit of time on the second line, but it was a very small sample size. So if you put him beside Sidney Crosby, I think this guy can go off for 30, 35 goals in this league. So again, one of the best playmakers of all time in Sidney Crosby feeding you the puck. You're going to put up some points. So you got to put him in a position to succeed. He's got to play every game, and he would get that opportunity with the Pittsburgh Penguins. You take a look at the lineup. McGroarty can maybe move down. Robertson can probably play on the top line. Even if Robertson isn't playing on the top line, have him on the second line. He's going to get a better opportunity. He's going to play more minutes. If you put him with maybe Raquel, that could make some sense. We don't know what's happening with Raquel at this point. And I didn't mention Rust because I think Rust, if you look at the cap space, this doesn't make a dent for the Pittsburgh Penguins. This makes all the sense in the world. And I'm not saying this is what the trade is going to be, but if you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs and their current cap situation, they have to shed some significant money. They want to add a top line winger. And when you think of a top line winger, you're thinking of $8-9 million, something like that. But the Pittsburgh Penguins have two top-line wingers that would be top-line wingers for the Toronto Maple Leafs that make $5 and $5.1 million respectively, and that's Rickard Rakell and Brian Rust. And I think Brian Rust would actually make a lot of sense on this team. Obviously, you move Max Domi out of this top six for them. You add Brian Rust to that top line. You have Michelli on the other side with Nylander and Tavares. That makes a lot of sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs all of a sudden. When you look at Brian Rust and what the Toronto Maple Leafs have to do in terms of shedding salary cap space. If they move off two other players, which weren't even pictured in that lineup, in David Kampf and Calle Yarncroke, they free up enough money with this trade, sending obviously Nick Robertson the other way. And again, this is not a 1-for-1 trade. Do not, think I'm saying that. It's going to be a much bigger trade, but I'm saying the framework here makes sense, I think, for both teams. Obviously, there would have to be some draft picks and probably Dennis Hill to be coming back the other way for the Pittsburgh Penguins, I would imagine. So then you kind of bolster up your goaltending in the AHL and moving forward, which I think they've done a decent job at, but could make some sense. But again, if you look at the cap situation, they would free up enough to then afford Brian Rust, and it's a very attractive contract for a lot of teams around the league. So I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1 Nick Robertson for Brian Rust, but when you take a look at the stats, like a Nick Robertson, if he gets a better opportunity in a place like Pittsburgh, this guy can absolutely go off for 30-35 goals. I think it's a great fit. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think this makes all the sense in the world. You're getting a top line wing that, again, had 65 points in 71 games last year. He can play with a guy like Austin Matthews. It makes a lot of sense. The only reason I would say not to make this trade at this point is if you're not getting other additional pieces back. If it's closer to like 2 pieces back or something like Robertson and draft pick, that doesn't make too much sense to me. Has to be a much bigger trade. And Brian Rust help, instill this culture in Pittsburgh, this winning culture. Not so sure you want to move off of a guy like that too quickly. I do believe that they would. I do believe Kyle Dubas would trade him, but I think that they would be more inclined to trade a guy like Erik Karlsson or Rickard Rakell first. But I think in terms of fit and what you're getting back, Nick Robertson for Brian Rust and obviously some other pieces makes all the sense in the world to me. But let me know in the comments how you feel about that. I know a lot of people are going to hate on that, but let me tell you, Nick Robertson, his shot, if he got a better opportunity, he can go off. He can be a really, really good goal scorer for this team. And I think, if you look at all the advanced analytics as well, one of the best point producers per the minutes that he plays in the entire league. So that would be a really good value trade when you're talking about getting younger and getting some value pieces back for some guys that are a little bit older. And we know Kyle Dubas is not going to shy away from trying to trade them. Makes all the sense in the world to me. So let me know how you feel in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.